What are some mysterious, cult-like, bad vibes towns across the USA? Clearwater, Florida. I had known it was the HQ for Scientology, but had never been there. Last month, I was visiting family in Florida and my best friend lives a few towns over from Clearwater. He took me to a place that entailed driving through downtown Clearwater. It is impossible not to notice that every building had brand new paint, all the shops looked sparkling clean, and there was not a soul to be seen. All the neighboring towns had hundreds of people milling about, but Clearwater looked like a ghost town. It looked like the set of a Twilight Zone episode. It would be interesting if the guy/gal driving the Google Maps car through all these places could chime in with experiences. Driver of mapping vehicle here. Most of the truly creepy small towns are down dirt gravel roads, which typically aren't mapped. I've worked every state except Hawaii and almost every Canadian province, and the only places that I've gotten the maybe I should get back in my car now vibe from are a handful of small towns in Kansas. You could just feel the eyes the second your feet hit the ground, and not in the typically way you get used to being stared at in those vehicles. It was a palpable aura of unwelcome. Man, this was years ago, but it was around 1998 or 1999, when I was 9. My family drove us to Mount Rushmore from Denver. We stopped off the highway in a random Wyoming town with a population of just over 100. We had a choice between two restaurants and entered one. Straight from a horror movie, when we walked in, the entire restaurant, packed with most of the town, fell silent. We ate and everyone was staring at us. My sister and I believed they were going to murder us. We left and it turns out our parents also thought we were going to be murdered. Seabrook, WA. It is idyllic. Perfectly idyllic. Too much so. Strong Stepford Wives vibes. I read somewhere that it was inspired by the town in The Truman Show. The idyllic facade is made creepier by the fact that it's located minutes from Tahila, an impoverished reservation town that's literally sinking into the ocean. Driving through both towns is a weird as duck contrast. Moscow, Idaho has an actual cult with thousands of followers. Their leader, a self-ordained pastor, has publicly stated he wants to take over the town and turn it into a theocracy. They are deeply misogynist, marital rape isn't possible, and have a history of sexual abuse within their group. The leader defended a student of their college who raped his host family's daughter, excommunicated the daughter, and then presided over the rapist's wedding. Their members keep running for local office and failing, but they are buying up all the property in town and moving in people from all over the country to attend their private school, theology college and church. Moscow also happens to be the town where the 4 University of Idaho students were murdered in 2022. Powers, Oregon. Stopped in the diner for coffee once on a drive-thru. I shit you not, like straight out of a movie, the other patrons just turned and quietly stared, not touching their own plates, until we left. Some friends and I experienced the same kind of thing in a bar bowling alley in Wisconsin. We decided to go out for bowling, and when we walked into the bar in the front it was like it went from bustling to very hushed and everyone was watching us. The bowling alley in the back was totally deserted and eerie. It was super awkward to be the only people playing, and I swear anytime we glanced behind us towards the bar we'd catch everyone staring. We all agreed it was one of the creepiest experiences we've had. Crestedstone, Colorado. It's easily the most bizarre place I've been to in the US. Lots of shoeless hippies, spiritualists, cult members, followers, and the like. Just a weird vibe all over. Some of the people are nice. There are some good artists there, but there's also a main square park where you'll almost always see these desperate, strung out people with an overloaded geoprism just sitting in the park like, well, I'm here. What next? Realizing they just drove across the country with $2 and a dream of getting high every day and chanting, only to find a still expensive Colorado weirdo town of barely a couple hundred people, nowhere for them to live, and no jobs to be found. There's a weird, tents-only neighborhood there that's really something to see. There's also an alien landing site nearby, or at least that's what it claims to be. Mora, NM is pretty damn scary to outsiders. Lots of rural mountain towns that are isolated from tourists can be strange. I've spent a lot of time in WV and Arkansas, but rural NM is probably the most hostile place to outsiders I have been. Roughly 400 years of isolation does things to people. Enough people have said that northern NM is not sketchy unless you're from there or Spain Spanish. I've been through a few towns in eastern Ohio and western PA where I've seen an uncomfortably large number of lawn signs that just block text of a weird Bible verse. Not the Jesus loves you kind, but the weeping and gnashing of teeth kind. By the 7th or 8th of them, I'm looking for the welcoming green of an interstate sign. Amboy, California, was a Route 66 boomtown with a railroad stop. When I-40 was opened, bypassing Amboy it withered and died. Only it didn't give up the ghost. There are some famous murders that occurred in town, if you can call it a town. It's only 3 buildings at a crossroad. Legend has it that Charles Manson and the Manson family would frequent the diner in the 1960s as it was the closest part of civilization to their nasty little hippie commune. Last time I was there was about 25 years ago, driving through. There's not a lot of traffic that drives through obviously, but there are people that live there, and as God is my witness, every time I've driven through, those people are outside in the scorching Mojave heat of the day staring you down as you drive past. Everyone here is mentioning medium to large sized towns. That's all wrong. The right towns for this have very few people, are in the middle of nowhere, and have weird traditions. I point to Ravenon, Arkansas. I myself have never been, but my girlfriend took a wrong turn driving through the state and stumbled into this place. In the dark of night, she came across its defining feature, a 12-foot tall statue of a raven. If you look up this statue on its own, you'll find it has been burned down twice, but they keep rebuilding it. Again, I have never been, and by all means it seems nice on Google Maps Street View. But the history is a little funny, and if my girlfriend is to be believed, the statue can be a bit freaky late at night. Alabama. This town is well known for closing all local federal buildings. Besides schools, this includes libraries, banks, courts, etc., and local businesses on Wednesday. This town was popular during the slavery era as it has a train that runs through it. Each Wednesday, the city square would be packed with visitors and locals to buy slaves. To give honor to the tradition, the city still closes and shuts everything down on Wednesdays. I should mention that I haven't lived there since 2014. Breezewood PA. I got stranded there once after wrecking the family car on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. It's the town from the meme about how awful American urban planning is, basically just a series of roads and strip malls. I went into the hotel bar where we were staying the first night, and this shirtless redneck was so drunk he could barely stand. He had his trashed wife and 2 crying kids there with him. Some truckers at the bar were talking about where to score meth. I walked up to the bar's jukebox out of curiosity, and the shirtless redneck threatened to kick my face in if I played any non-white music. Except he used more offensive language. I once tried to take a random trip to Cowardalene on a Wednesday in July. The days before and after were fine for lodgings, but that one specific day had no vacancy in any Airbnb, hotel, hostel, you name it. The entire town was booked. I wondered what was happening on that day. I googled for hours and couldn't find anything. I found the town calendar, and it was super thorough. But nothing was marked on it for that day. You can't tell me that wasn't the serial killer convention from the Sandman. Red Mountain and Johannesburg, Ransburg, California. Creepiest towns to drive through in the Southern California desert on 395. Seems like the spot to go if you are trying to get away from society. Similarly, the Salton Sea towns like Bombay Beach, Slab City, Salton City. This is from personal experience. Cushing, okay. I was visiting a distant relative a few years ago and we drove through at night. The streets were lined with MAGA and Confederate flags. We stopped for gas, and a white man came outside and stared at us. My friend was not white, I was. I made him sit in the car with the door locked while I pumped gas. We try to leave quickly. As we drive down the main road, we see a Nazi flag, and then one of those window storefronts. As we pass, I realized it is a shrine to Donald and Melania Trump, complete with mannequins, makeup, wigs, American flags, and a sign that said "Make America Great Again." As we're almost out of town, there's a rundown house spray painted with the words "Lock her up." It was ducking surreal and terrifying. Ocean Grove, NJ. They call it God's Square Mile on the Jersey Shore, so at least you know it's culty going in. Lovely old houses with the creepiest Stepford vibe I've ever encountered. They close the beach on Sunday mornings and actually enforce it, or try to. The whole town was founded as some Christian camp, and to this day there are tents that families use as their summer homes. I think they are owned by the church, but the right to rent them is passed down from generation to generation. I live across the lake in Asbury Park, which is known for having a raging case of the gay. There are footbridges over the lake connecting the two towns, but Ocean Grove put gates on their side that they lock at night to keep us deviants out. You can still get from one side to the other, but you have to either walk along the boardwalk or go all the way out to the main road. I grew up in coastal New England in the 90s. Not necessarily bad vibes, but definitely some weird events. My mother had bad insomnia, so many nights during the summer she'd drive along the coast, sometimes just park and watch the ocean at 3 a.m. She'd tell me these stories of this cult-like group she saw maybe 2 or 3 times over the years late at night. Old beat-up van that several hooded robe-wearing people would get out of and walk down the rocks to the shore. I think it spooked her, as she never really watched for too long. At first I didn't know what to make of it, but then there starting being reports of small animals being mutilated a mile or 2 down the shore at the park. In fact, for whatever reason that park had some weird stuff happening over the years. Numerous times human feces was found right in the middle of the bike and hiking paths. No idea the motivation here, but just some prolonged sick act of sheeting where someone would step on it. Next was a serial flasher. Yes, just some dude that would just pop out of a bush and expose himself to a random female bicyclist or hiker. This went on for years, often in the newspaper, and other than a vague description, I don't think they ever caught the guy. A few bodies washed up here and there too. Definitely some weird stuff happening around that time. Vidor, Texas. A well-known sundown town. My stepmom, half black, half Mexican, but looks black, and my dad made the mistake of stopping there in the evening for gas. Went in to use the bathroom, and as soon as they walked in, the guy at the register slammed a shotgun on the counter and told them to get out in not nice terms. The whole town is that way. Scottsboro and Bridgeport Al. I lived there for 3 months, working construction. It was a data center for Google. As you can imagine, it attracted iron workers, carpenters, welders, etc. from all over, and of course, some had to be Latinos. Well, the townspeople couldn't be more obvious about their discomfort with our race. It got to a point where we were followed around a Walmart and on the highway by 2 cops. They never stopped us to ask questions, which felt more intimidating. Eating at restaurants was normal for the most part. We were never mistreated by owners or staff, but you could tell by the faces of some patrons, especially the elderly ones, that we weren't welcome there either. We even had some situations at the hotel we stayed for a couple weeks. Some white guys staying in room below ours started acting hostile towards us. We confronted them and they changed their tone, but then they got drunk and started shooting their gums to the air and going on racist rants in the parking lot. We called the police, which arrived an hour later, arresting no one. I've never experienced any of this before, and I wish I never stayed in a place with such horrible people again. Even some locals warned us about going out at night and stay away from some areas because there has been people shot and even missing. I don't want to create a bad reputation for those towns, but it seems they already have a bad one. All the Walmarts in the area had boards filled with teen black kids that were missing. That tells you something about the place. Trio of towns in northeast Florida: Lake Butler, Rayford, and Stark. It's where most of the major state prisons are, and unfortunately, since that's the primary job source, it reflects on their culture severely. It's very racist and backwards, and you feel very unwelcome. It's unfortunate because that part of the state is actually quite beautiful. It's heavily forested and there's a lot of rivers and lakes. but the people make it very unwholesome and unwelcoming. My sister and her husband live on the outskirts of Stark. I've visited many times, and it's basically a ghost town. If it weren't for the newer cars on the road, you'd assume no one lives there. Randomly, things close at first for a day, but then indefinitely. Restaurants, offices, shops, and even schools appear unkept and entirely empty. It's a real-life liminal space. Stopped at a bar in Elco, Nevada on a road trip. Seemed like a fun place from the outside. Some woman walks up to us and goes, "Hi. I'm so and damp, so. What are you doing here? You are not from around here. Got lots of stairs." Went to a casino across the street to escape. Casino was completely empty, but lit up. Almost post-apocalyptic except for one janitor. We noped the hell out of there fast. Felt like something really bad was going to happen. We decided not to find a local hotel and bounced. This was 2010. Myrtle Beach SC. For those who don't know, it's a major tourist destination on the coast. Beaches, hotels, tourist crap, etc. Like Gatlinburg or Branson or Wisconsin Dells. For our Canadian brethren, like Niagara Falls. For our British friends, like Blackpool or Skegness. Millions of people go every year. Sun and fun. Except, it's got a dark vibe. I can't describe it. It seems fun during the day, but once it gets dark it starts feeling like Santa Carla in The Lost Boys. Off-season is even worse. The streets are deserted except for a few sketchy people just wandering or hanging around. It's not a cult thing, just creepy. And it's just the main drag in Myrtle, Ocean Boulevard. There's tons of little towns up and down the coast that are peaceful, sleepy little beach communities that are warm and friendly after dark.